What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a volunteer ass whooping version of the opening drive of the Coach and the Couch Potato, brought to you by the Bar and Baseball and Softball Academy, Cornerstone Home Remodeling. As always, I am Jeremy the Couch Potato. Opposite side of the screen, we got my guy who is living on cloud nine today, Coach Slate. What is going on?
Oh, not much, man. Just I didn't get much sleep last night, man. I was pretty pumped up. But yeah, man, life's good. Just happy for my guy, man. I'm happy for Luke. We'll get into that later, but it was definitely a fun watch, man. How's it going? I know you had to travel a little bit to go pick up the young goat, Jaden. I know you had to
Yeah,
go pick him up yesterday.
I may have got yelled at during the ride there on the second JJ touchdown for screaming while Sabrina was driving. So I had to apologize and promise to be good the rest of the way. But I did ask for permission to yell once we were parked.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it was definitely a fun watch. It was such a fun watch. I was rewatching it about 8 a.m. this morning because I too, slept a little bit, but then you wake up and you're like, man, this really happened.
Yeah.
Um, pleasantly surprised would probably be the only way I could describe it.
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. Like, you know, people were saying you just don't know what you're going to get all week long, and I had we had a fairly good idea that we were going to get an aggressive version of the Buckeyes, and you just don't think that they were going to dominate the way that they did. And listen, I think Tennessee is a great program. I think Coach Heupel's doing a great job. I think Nico, their quarterback, I gained so much respect for him after last night, and so I just was not expecting this type of win. Obviously we predicted them to go out and get the W, but I didn't think it was going to be like this. So
We both got Tennessee's point total right.
yeah,
Um,
yes we did. Yes we did.
but then if you add our two together, you get closer to what the Buckeyes had.
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of Nico, did you know he's 6'6"?
He's a very tall individual.
I mean, Kirk Herbstreit said it multiple times last night. You know, I don't know if he thought maybe people were dyslexic and didn't comprehend or what,
Oh my gosh.
but
He
that's a whole nother conversation we'll dive into here in a minute.
that dude.
Um, you know, normally when we do our game recaps, we do good, bad, ugly. I don't think there was anything bad about it as a Buckeye. Are there things that need to, can always be worked on for sure? We still had a couple missed tackles. JTT is a spy. Let's never see that again in our lives.
Yeah.
Um, nothing against him. It's just not natural. I think
Yeah.
if you're going to spy an edge guy, it's got to be Jack. I think
Yeah.
Jack is athletic enough to do it. Something you hit on when we did before the battle, you said we're going to see some odd fronts.
Mm-hmm.
We saw some odd fronts.
Yeah. Yeah. No, honestly, like we did see some odd fronts. I thought we'd see quite a little bit more. But some of the stunts that Jim Knowles had dialed up, I just, man, I have so much respect for Coach Knowles and his wealth of knowledge. When you're facing an athletic quarterback, right? And not many people realize how athletic Nico actually is. I mean, he can run. We saw he could run physically. He can outrun you. He can make you miss in space. We saw those things. And one of the things that the Buckeyes did really good, I know people were probably getting frustrated when they saw big Tyleik Williams and a few other the D tackles really flaring back outside. But what they were doing is they're trying to stop Nico from being able to step up into the pocket, right? So if he releases, now he's got to go side to side. And so I thought they did a pretty good job of that. And it was fun to see the different looks that we actually gave them up front.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you saw some of those more exotic type pressures. Because I think the Buckeyes went into this game very, 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 very confident.
Absolutely.
I think they're like, let's try this, because what didn't we do against the team we're going to play if we win? We
Yeah.
did not get pressure on Dylan Gabriel.
Yeah.
And obviously we will do a before the battle redo, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Duck edition, but
We'll see if we can get. Well, we could see. We'll see if we can get Jake back on here.
yeah, I mean, because Oregon has looked somewhat pedestrian,
Yeah.
in the last few weeks. So that'll be interesting. One thing that jumped out to me quick in this game, you had Kenyatta Jackson on the field in the second play of the game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that dude was bringing it.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was another thing that I was very delighted to see was the rotation of defensive linemen that we had. I love seeing that because it allows our guys, Jack and JT, to be fresh, to make those plays that they were making on last night. And I thought Kenyatta played very well. I thought Mitchell Melton did a decent job when he was in. I thought Caden Curry did a decent job when he was in. And then, you mix in Hero Canoe in the trenches. He's a massive individual, by the way. He has gotten so much bigger. But you saw Hero Canoe. You saw Tyleek in there with Caden McDonald, which that was a lineup that I liked a lot. Two just pluggers on the inside. Again, trying to limit the vertical run game and trying to limit, the idea of Nico being a step up in the pocket and having him go outside. That's what you do to the guys like Lamar Jackson, right? If you're going up against Lamar, he gets going north and south. You're not stopping him,
Yep.
but you got to make him run east and west. And so, the mixing up of the defensive line personnel groupings was awesome. I love seeing Kenyatta out there, man. He just plays hard. He plays relentless. You know how we feel about Caden Curry. He's just a high motor all the time. And so I was very pleased with the way the defensive front played. I mean, they really, for the most part, dominated and kind of just did what they had to do to really shut down, their run game.
Yeah, and linebacker play, those boys brought the lumber.
Yeah.
You saw Sonny with a big hit, and then you saw Cody Simon crack Nico's helmet. I think at that point, it didn't matter if it was Nico, if it was Peyton Manning, T. Martin, Heath Schuler, Morgan Wallen, or Kenny Chesney playing quarterback. They weren't going to have success.
Yeah.
I think at that point, that was their come to Jesus moment of the hits just hit a little bit different when you're up north in the cold.
Yeah. Yeah. And, we both know a few people that were down at the game. And obviously here in Marion, dude, it was frigid. It was cold outside. I mean, you could see it on the Buckeyes. A few of the guys were coming straight to the sideline, putting those big coats on. I saw Quinshawn do it a few times. Like it was cold. And listen, the one thing that I saw all over Twitter before the game was, their offensive linemen out there without their shirts on. They're lathered up with like Vaseline or whatever they had on. Listen, like I get that. You do that as like a mind thing so that the opposing team sees it and it's like, okay, they're actually ready to play. All of that means nothing when the whistle blows and you got Tyleek and you got Jack Sawyer and you got JTT lining up, just dominating the game. And so, we made a big deal about that. And I think the cold definitely affected them in some way. They're ground. Yeah, I really think it did. You saw a few clips of their guys jumping around out on the field, trying to get loose and everything. And so I think it made a little bit of an impact on them, but I don't care if it was 90 degrees. The way the Buckeyes played, I don't think they were going to lose. And I think it would have been a dominating fashion, no matter whatever the weather was.
Yeah. I mean, and the funny caveat to their guys walking out there with no shirts on, there's about 3 minutes later, they ran and put their shit on. So, you had that. Yeah. The cold, though, like when you look at how many of their guys went down throughout this game, they kept hitting on it, during the game. You don't want to drink when it's cold, but you still need to drink.
Yeah.
That's another piece to this puzzle. The Buckeyes are, their staff is used to that.
Mm-hmm.
The Tennessee staff, It's like, oh, it's cold. We aren't going to get dehydrated. How many times did you see a guy and and I think I was watching the McAfee version of the game today, and they actually made a joke about it when the 1D lineman went down when Ohio State was trying to run a little more up tempo, and they're like, "Oh, look, the SEC trick." But I don't think any of that was trickery. I think it was, 100%. These dudes were cramping up because they weren't prepared for it.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's nothing that really that can prepare you for that. You can go outside, you can practice, you can do all those different things in the cold, but once you're actually out there, like you said earlier, the hits feel a little different. I remember we were playing Marion University, man, the coldest game I ever played in. I think I talked about it a few episodes ago, and I had a big hit on the sideline, and it may have hurt me more than it hurt the guy that I hit, just because it was so cold. It just stings a little bit differently. And so, once that first pop happens and the Buckeyes get up on you, it starts to get into your mind like, well, is this actually affecting us? You know what I mean? And so
Yeah,
it was man, it was just an interesting game. It was just an interesting game. So many different caveats, so many different, mysteries in my mind when it came to the Tennessee roster, all those guys going down. The Buckeyes shuffling their offensive line. Tennessee had to do a little bit of the same. Dylan Sampson goes down. Like, what do they do after that? Like, it was just a lot of the things that went on in the game, man. It was just interesting, man. It was just interesting.
yeah. I mean, Dylan Sampson. That is real interesting. I don't believe Josh Heupel thought he was going to have to run Nico 20 times.
No.
For 80 yards, give or take. Um, you know, I have my own theory on Dylan Sampson, like I told you before we came on here. And I hope to heck I'm wrong, because I don't, the kid is a ball player. He is a baller. Again, I don't think it would have mattered if it was Jamal Lewis, Alvin Kamara. It wasn't going to matter last night. As soon as I saw Captain Jack out there, he was talking his mess before the game. I was a little nervous about that, but Jack Sawyer got held on every play last night.
Yeah.
And between him and JTT, they still had 2 sacks, I think.
JT had 2.5. Jack had 1.5. So
I mean,
they had four sacks.
Tennessee still ran the ball for 152 yards.
Yeah.
But their pass game, which they run to set up the pass, like we talked about. Nico was 14 of 31 and 4 sacks.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a combination of an insane pass rush, but BIA was locked in.
They were definitely locked in, and that's one of the things that we talked about on Before the Battle. Like, what you got to pick your poison, right? What are you going to try to make beat you? We know Dylan Sampson and their running game is their bread and butter. So now we're going to force Nico to make every freaking play possible. And if he does, and he goes out and plays a game of his career and he beats us, you can live with that, knowing that you took away what their soul is. And right. And their soul is the run game. So obviously when Dylan Sampson goes down, he was getting hit. Those 2 carries that he had, man, Lathan Ransom came in flying, shot out of a cannon right into his thigh. But one of the things that you got to do, man, if you're going to take away their run game, all right, we got to make Nico pay every time he goes to run, every time he sits in the pocket for an extra second too long. We've got to make him feel us. And I thought the Buckeyes did such a good job of that. They forced Nico to have to make the plays to beat them. And unfortunately for Nico, he did not have the support from his skill guys. The run game was okay, but it was mainly because of him. And, like you said, Captain Jack and Jalen were just dominant on the edge. I mean, they played, to me, their best game of the season as a duo. And so I love the fact that the Buckeyes defensively stuck to that game plan. We're going to make Nico beat us, and if he can do it, great. You can see that we didn't blitz a ton. And
No.
that was something I was not expecting. I was expecting and see us play a lot more man coverage and to see us, really try to get after him in those situations. We did blitz, but it wasn't as much as I thought it was going to be. And it's because our front four just really did a good job of getting home. And so, they did a good job, man, of following the game plan, putting Nico in some really tough spots. And every time he ran, I mean, he felt us. And that starts to wear on you. After 3/4 of that, it's like, dude, like, you expect me to throw the ball down the field? I'm getting mollywopped every time I drop back, to pass. Every time I go to tuck and run, I am getting destroyed. And again, shout out to Nico, man. He kept swinging. He didn't back down. He was lowering his shoulder, trying to run through guys. And so, but the Buckeye defense, man, shout out to Coach Knowles and the rest of the staff. That was a great game plan. Forced Nico to beat you, and he couldn't do it.
And IGB did not have a penalty.
And he got a pick taken away from him. That go on it.
Yeah. So speaking of that, that might be the absolute worst call that I've ever seen in my life. I mean,
was pretty bad.
This game was atrociously officiated all around. I mean, they missed a PI, if not two, on Ohio State. Then they missed the mugging of JJ on the pick that Will was credited with. I mean, honestly, that whole play was just. I mean, you can't chalk it up to anybody. I mean,
no.
What's crazy is JJ almost made that catch.
Yeah.
One last thing defensively, real quick. We've talked about the portal and all that good jazz, especially if IGB leaves. We're fine.
Absolutely.
Bryce West and Aaron Scott both last night made plays.
Yeah.
Because, the Buckeyes were out here rotating guys in. And if I'm Nico, I am livid at Josh Heupel, though. Like, you threw in the towel, you punted the ball, you didn't go for the onside kick. You knew you were beat, and you kept me in there. I'm your, you've heard what, $5, $7, $8 million for Nico was the deal, and you keep me in there to keep getting licked. I would be a little upset.
Yeah. Yeah, and really quick on the DBs, man. Like you said, like if IGB leaves, do I think they bring in another guy out of the portal? I think they do. It's just for depth purposes. But Bryce West is a forgotten guy in that class. He came in, he had some shoulder issues, had to have surgery. He's just now getting back to 100%. He is, a sub 11 100 guy. Like, he's just got wheels. He's got ball skills. He was an elite player for the Tar Blooders on offense, actually, this past or last season. And so, like, there's just a lot of talent there. And obviously with Aaron Scott, Jermaine Matthews, Calvin Sensom-Hunt, I mean, there is just a lot of talent at that cornerback position. So I do think, like you said, we will be fine, man. We will be fine.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, we got OG Walt leading them.
Yep.
So offensively, going into the game, we all know where the conversation began and ended. I got multiple texts last night and today saying, how many people that listen to us, all they could think about last night was you. Luke Montgomery, as I tweeted out on our Twitter account last night, or actually when the whole rotation thing came out too, we don't play favorites for the most part around here.
Yeah.
But everybody finally got to see what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
X's and O's wise, he was laying dudes out.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I try, obviously my wife sent you a video of me trying to coach Luke and stuff like that. Like, he could hear me, I was pretty geeked up for him, but I am, biased, obviously, because I coached a kid for 2 years and I know how phenomenal of a young man he is. But I also know how much of a freak athlete he is, and that he's only been playing this offensive line thing for 3 years. And so he knows so much when it comes to footwork, right? Because he was a basketball kid. And so one of the things that I just always want people to remember is the type of excuse me, the type of athlete that he is. And the other thing about Luke is, man, he's got a mean freaking streak. Like there is something that when he gets amped up, he is unstoppable. I vividly remember a moment we were playing Clay his senior year, and he was on the defensive line and he was literally getting blocked by like 6 guys, I felt like. And his helmet came off and he was still going 1,000 miles an hour. Those guys are hitting him after the whistle and he didn't care. And he turns to the crowd and starts getting them jacked up. Like that's just the type of kid Luke is. And so the one thing I was confident in when he was going to go in was that he was going to play hard, he was going to play physical, and if he messed up, somebody was still getting put in the dirt. Like that's just the things I know about him. That's what I know about Josh Padilla. Those are just those type of guys, man. And so to see Luke get the flowers that he deserves and get that true opportunity that he's been itching for, it was very rewarding, obviously as a former coach. But you just think about him and the time that he's put in. Man, words can't describe how happy I was just to see him find success and for people to see what so many in his circle and so many around him have seen for so many years. He is the type of guy you want in your program. He's the definition of a Buckeye. And I know from now on, he's going to continue to build off of this. Like he's not going to get in his head. He is back to work right now saying, all right, what do I got to do to get better for next week or in 2 weeks? And so, shout out to Luke, man. I'm proud of you, man. It was so much fun. It was so much fun to see.
Yeah, and I mean, and honestly, obviously we talk about Luke because he's Luke, but Austin Saraveld played pretty good when he was in.
Yeah, he did, man.
Played pretty good when he was. Donovan Jackson.
Yeah.
Outside of the play on the weird, bunch to the boundary that gave everybody PTSD. But if the receivers execute that play, the first down's there.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
But where I was going with that is you heard James Pierce's name one time.
Yeah, it was that play.
That's a dude who is a stud, who is going to play on Sundays and make a lot of money doing it. And you heard his name one time.
Yeah.
So shout out O-line. Josh Fryer, playing with a tweaked ankle.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get much better. And to kind of cap things with Luke, to me last night, Luke was the Jack Sawyer of the offense.
Yeah.
He was hitting people. He was the one pumping the crowd, and you look back to the rivalry and everybody talks about what's missing from it, let make no bones about it. Like we said last week, that game's in the past, but the fact that you had 2 Ohio guys leading that charge tells you all you need to know, and that's why you still recruit the state of Ohio.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And the other thing that really jumped out to me too was, just the passion that the overall guys offensively played with. And that was something that you could just tell. So I watched the Skycast version of the game today. I like watching that version because it shows interactions on the sideline. And I'm a big like almost like psychology type stuff when it comes to culture. Like that's one of the things I always look. How do the guys respond to the coaching? How do the coaches respond to feedback from the players? That's something that I always pay attention to. If you watch the Skycam version or the Skycast version, whatever it's called, you will see guys that are fully bought into this program, that are fully bought into each other, and that had the roughest week ever after losing to the team up north. When Coach Day came out in the press conference and said the week after was extremely tough, there were some tough conversations between the players, between the coaches, between the players and the coaches. There was some really hard truths that had to be discussed. I fully believe it. And the reason why I believe it is because there were moments on the sideline where Quinshawn comes running off after he scores a touchdown. And you could tell Coach Day gave him a look like he was proud of him. And I don't know what Quinshawn said, but he said something very animated. And it was just like they're reminding Coach Day, this is why you recruited us. This is why you brought us here, right? There was a play where Luke wasn't in and we scored a touchdown, and Luke literally like two-hand shoves Coach Day. And it's just like, we are here. And Coach Day just points at him, right? To see the interactions with the players on the sideline when JJ's coming to the sideline and all the coaches are running to him, getting in his face. Travion, the same exact thing. Quinshon, all those guys, the offensive linemen pumping each other up. Like, that just reassured to me that this program is okay. We have a Michigan problem, but that's it. We are perfectly fine, and we need to get over the hump against Michigan, and obviously everybody knows that. But to see that those interactions on the sideline, like that was, man, it was so cool. It was so cool, and it just makes me feel good about where the program is, and I totally get why people respect Coach Day. One of the things I really loved hearing afterwards was Captain Jack, and he talked about his relationship with Ryan Day, and he said, I don't really want to go too much into that, but Coach Day knows I love him. He's like my uncle. Like, he's like an uncle to me. He said this hasn't been easy. I feel so bad for him and what he has to endure every single day being the head coach at Ohio State, but that comes with the territory. But Coach Day knows how I feel about him, and I'm forever grateful for him. And I like, for all the naysayers that say he needs to be fired and all that stuff, for these kids to still go to bat for him, like, that is, our culture is more than fine. It is more than fine.
One of the interactions that jumped out to me, because a lot of times you don't see commingling between sides of the ball, especially during the game. Travion, on one of his touchdowns, it might have been the one that Mr. Montgomery channeled his inner Orlando pace on.
Yeah.
The first person to Travion was JT.
Yeah.
To see the defense, interacting with the offense, like that, just in the middle of it. It wasn't a game-winning play. It wasn't an end-of-the-half play. That tells you a lot about that. So, yeah.
Well, and that brings up a great point, too. If you remember back to the Michigan game, obviously Jack gets that interception, right? We think that's going to be the turning point. I remember when we go 3 and out or whatever it was, they panned to Jack, and Jack was extremely frustrated, right? One of the things that I have always lived by as a coach, Coach Hinton literally drilled this into us. Coach Brady literally drilled this into us. If you're going to critique, you better be the ones that love them up when it's right.
Yep.
If they're going out and scoring 42 points, then you better be celebrating with them after every touchdown. Because if they're not and you're critiquing, now you're becoming a hypocrite, because there's going to be a time where that offense is going to have to pick you up. Right. And so that's one of the things that I enjoy seeing, man. If you're going to critique, and I know those guys had some tough conversations with the offensive line and so on and so forth, you better be the first people there to celebrate when it's clicking and when it's right. And so to see Jack and to see JT and those guys, celebrating with the offensive guys, man, that was good. That was good. And I think, just a reminder again, man, that these kids are freaking awesome. They're just great young men who are there for each other, that came back for these reasons, that are now going to be able to rid themselves of that nasty taste of the Michigan loss and in the shoe. Right. And they just come out with a dominating win against a team that nobody expected us to dominate. It's just very happy for those kids, man.
Yeah. One thought I had watching the O-line in that game. Now, obviously, we'll see what happens in 2 weeks. I don't know. We have talked about the Justin Fry situation until we're red in the face. I don't think Justin Fry's issue is development. I think Justin Fry is doing a phenomenal job of development, but Justin Fry has to figure out the recruiting piece. Now, granted, Justin Fry's never coached at a place like Ohio State, to where you are chasing big fish against the big boys. So that will be interesting to see, what happens there based on what we're seeing. One last little offensive line caveat. How ironic was it that David Sanders was in the stadium
Yeah.
on the Volunteer sideline and got to witness that.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure he won't have many regrets though when that first check hits the account. So I think he'll be okay. But yeah, it's definitely tough, man. It's probably one of those situations where Coach Fry probably saw him after the game and probably wanted to be like, dude, just change your mind. Come on,
Portal,
like,
baby,
yeah,
portal.
just go ahead and dip in the portal. But offensively, man, that was fun, and I know we're going to dive into it here in a second, but just coming out and playing fast like that and starting fast was great.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I was going to go next. We saw a lot of things. Well, before we get into the big picture stuff, Will Howard, 24 of 29, 313 yards. Just, I hope everybody that hated on Will after the game against the team up north, you're never, especially after seeing last night, you're not going to convince me that Will Howard was not concussed in that game.
Oh yeah.
The accuracy that Will Howard can throw a football with is outside of his leadership is my second favorite thing about him.
Yeah.
Both of those throws to JJ, dots. The throw to JJ in the back of the end zone where JJ got mugged, dot.
Yeah.
The throw to Emeka that took us down to like the 4 or the 5 yard line, dot. Now, kudos to Emeka on that because they actually brought it up during the broadcast. It was probably the only legitimate point that Kirk Herbstreit made all night.
Yeah.
Emeka didn't show that he was getting the ball. He did not move his hands until the very end of the route. There was a Tennessee fan who I may have talked a lot of mess on Twitter last night after the game, who was like, those were both underthrows. Neither one of those balls was an underthrow, son. So shout out Will.
Yeah, man, and that catch that Emeka had, that's something that Coach Hartline preaches at the clinic. When we get the chance to watch spring practice and receiver, and he's not the only one. Receiver coaches around the country, high school, college, they all NFL, they all echo late hands, right? What is the defensive back taught to do? The defensive back is taught to play through your hands. That's why you don't see a lot of defensive backs turn around when they are in that one-on-one situation. It's because they're trying to play through their hands. Well, how can I play through your hands if you don't show me your hands, right? And so if you wait to show me your hands at the last second, now I am a second late because I have to react to you. But if I see you running and chasing with your hands or getting ready to go up, now I can play those hands. But if you remember, he caught that down here, and that was just a lot of gamesmanship and a lot of just technique and practice that Emeka showed on that play. So that was awesome. I'm so happy Emeka had a great game. I think he's been a forgotten guy. I was just looking at his stats. He's a forgotten guy that's got 65 catches for 824 yards and 9 touchdowns. He's a forgotten guy. But the way that Will Howard played was awesome. Listen, Will Howard has had one bad game this year, and that was at the worst time against Team Up North. If you look at the way that he played against Oregon in the first game, very efficient. He threw the ball all over the place, had a great game. What does he remember for? Sliding a second too late, right? Fair or unfair, that's just the way that is, right? Penn State had an efficient game. Rough start, but he had an efficient game after that. Did what he needed to do, took care of business, completed well over 70% of his passes, really in all of our big games that we've had. The Indiana game, another game where he had a very efficient game. Okay, so we have seen consistently that is who he is. And so I wouldn't expect anything less in this game. I love the fact that we allowed him easy throws. We schemed easy throws for him. And that is something that I really enjoy seeing. One of the deep outs that we threw to Carnell, one of the deep outs or corner routes that we threw to G. Scott,
that was
just did a really good job of scheming open some simple throws, simple reads for Will. And then I love the fact that Will just had the red light that if there was a one-on-one that he wanted to exploit, I'm doing it. And I will take that all day long with JJ. I mean, when you have him out there, he could enter the draft, right? If he was able to, he would be the top receiver taken in this year's draft. Like he is that talented. And so we've got to utilize that, man. And I thought Coach Day, Coach Kelly, did a really good job of really setting the tone with that, trying to get creative in the different ways that we got on the ball. And here's the thing. We preached and we wanted, 12 to 15 targets. He only had 7 targets, but they were meaningful targets. And that's the difference, right? They were targets that were down the field, that were forcing pass interferences, that were creating big plays for us. And then the other targets that he had were underneath where he could just beat guys with speed. Yep. And so those are the things that we need to continue to do with him, because now Oregon is going to see that, and they're going to remember what he did in the first game as well. And they're going to try to find a way to bracket him. So how can we scheme up stuff for Carnell? How can we scheme up stuff for Egbuka? Right. So those are the things that I'm interested to see moving forward. But man, Will Howard just came out slinging, and that was so much fun to watch. Just an efficient game from him. And I loved the fact that he ran the ball without hesitation. Right. That was very reassuring to me. He stumbles over his feet quite a bit. I guess he's a big lumbering individual, but I was very happy to see the accuracy and the aggressiveness in throwing the ball down the field.
Yeah, and speaking of JJ and how you said wide receiver one, Todd McShay took it a step further last night. Todd McShay said Jeremiah Smith would be the first wide receiver taken number 1 since Keyshawn.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Hopefully he doesn't try to petition the NCAA.
Yeah.
Go to the league.
But JJ 8, Emeka, I mean, offensively, tempo. We saw tempo at times. I felt like Chip was doing Chip things. I don't know if maybe Chip was chasing drones in New Jersey during the Michigan game or what, if he was having an out-of-body experience. But if you run that game plan that we saw last night, you beat Michigan by 20. And there were even Michigan fans admitting that last night on Twitter. Like, they were dying laughing.
Yeah.
It was like, wow, if they do this against us, we get smoked.
Yeah.
And I saw an Oregon account. I saw an Oregon account say, Oregon's bowl game uniforms for the Rose Bowl, and it was a Michigan uniform.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess to just sum it up for the the game, like, wow. I think the boys came out with something to prove. I think that I don't want to use the term a middle finger to Buckeye Nation, but I 100% think that those boys have had 2 weeks of reading and listening to the BS and toxicity that's been being spewed, and absolutely use that to light a fire.
Oh, heck yeah.
And I love it. I'm here for it.
Absolutely, man. And we've talked about it on here. Everybody knows how we feel. We try to be, rational. Listen, it's okay to criticize and to be frustrated and to be upset about losing to our biggest rival. That is absolutely the truth. Hate it. I hate losing to that team, right? But we've said it till we're blue in the face. This isn't 2002. This isn't the BCS era. This is a different era of college football. You could go 11-0 and then happen to lose that game against the team up north, and you're still going to make the playoff, right? That's just the way that it is now. And so you can't curl up into a freaking shell, right? You still have things out there that you can obtain. And one of those is a national championship. At the end of the year, we want a natty. Yes, I want to beat Michigan every single year. And I think, we are going to get that fixed, and it's going to get turned around, hopefully in the near future. But right now, this is what we have to focus on. We have to focus on going and getting our revenge against Oregon, getting to the college football semifinals, and then doing whatever it takes to get to the championship. And so that is just the way college football is now. People need to come to terms with that. That's not devaluing the game. I was listening to the Barstool guy. I can't stand him. I forget what's his name? The president of Barstool. I don't know.
Oh, Portnoy.
Yeah, God, I can't stand that guy. He's just such a good instigator, though.
Oh, yeah.
like he was going on this rant to Buckeye fans about how they're devaluing the game. He's devaluing the game. How on earth do you think this guy is devaluing the game when he compared it to the death of his freaking father? Like, don't sit there and tell me that this guy is devaluing the game. He's understanding that they still have a lot to play for. And if I'm a player, although we lost that game, if I see my coach pack it in after we lose, even though we can go play for a natty, I'm leaving the program.
Yeah.
I'm hopping in the portal the first chance I get if I know I'm playing for a guy who's going to pack it in after a loss. No, I want to play for a guy who is going to look himself in the mirror, take some tough criticism from the fans, from the players, from the other coaches, and then still come out and try to put together the best game plan possible to go get a freaking dub. That is the type of guy I want to play for. And so to think that we're devaluing that, no, it's just something, it's a different era. And you need to understand that the 12-team playoff is here. It's not going anywhere. And so we have to understand there's so much more to play for. And I'll take a natty every single year. If we can win one every single year and we happen to lose to Michigan, yeah, it's going to suck. And I'll be frustrated for multiple weeks after that game. But I'll take the national championship.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So but in that same breath, as far as like, the middle finger or whatever to Buckeye Nation, shout out to those that were there, because I have talked to multiple people who have said that the environment was bananas.
Yeah.
And shout out to the Tennessee fans who traveled.
Yeah.
Now, was it a takeover? No. Was it arguably the most visiting fans ever? Yeah. But I still think Texas in 05, because I was there.
Mm-hmm.
You had the rumor was you had 500,000 people on Lane Avenue that day of that Texas game. I mean, and it was packed, because that was in the old tailgating days where they basically shut Lane Avenue down.
Yeah.
And you had Texas fans everywhere. I think the TV presentation did a really good job of skewing the perception of how many Tennessee fans were there. And that's kind of where I want to go next. I've always downplayed media biases and situations and things like that. But after yesterday, it started yesterday morning during college game day, when Mr. I never beat Michigan, Desmond Howard's new cohort in crime, the Walmart Wolverines, we'll call them. I won't call them what I've been calling them via text message. Just basically pissed on Indiana. Like I said when we started running through the bracket, people are sleeping on Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is a dang good football team.
Yeah.
But so it started, Indiana got outclassed. Where's everybody saying that Tennessee got outclassed?
Yeah.
Because they did.
Yeah.
If you take away if you call the PI on JJ, that takes points off the board for them and puts points on the board for the Buckeyes. You extended their drive with the ridiculous roughing the passer call.
Yeah.
That game could have easily been 49-7, 56-10. I mean, there was a lot of points that could have shifted.
Yeah.
But I guess, the biggest takeaway, Kirk Herbstreit, and I'm not big in, obviously we're a very, very, very small podcast, so I don't have to worry about Kirk Herbstreit calling ESPN and getting my job taken away like he did the Torg in Columbus.
Yeah.
Kirk Herbstreit's a piece of trash. The last 10 minutes of that game last night was the most unprofessional thing I've ever witnessed in my life. To literally call a portion of a fan base a lunatic fringe.
Yeah.
To make the comments about, oh my God, they better not lose to Oregon, or they'll want Ryan Day fired again. The whole nobody congratulated me because my son went to Michigan. And what parallel universe does another school's coaches tell you congratulations when your kid goes somewhere else?
Yeah.
A guy we've talked about a lot on here that we both respect as a player, Terrell Pryor was right.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, Herb Street, yeah, I don't really have I didn't like the I didn't like how he was, going after the lunatic fringe at the end. Like I'm not a big fan of that. Yes, do we have that type of fan base?
For
Have
sure.
we called them out on this podcast? Absolutely. There are some people in Buckeye Nation that take things just a tad too far sometimes, right? And they just live in a very negative space all the time. But to do that on a national telecast where millions upon millions of people are watching, it's just like, man, like you don't. That's not a place that you need to go. There are certain things that I do like that he calls out. And I'm glad, and Coach Saban did it too. I love the fact that Coach Saban called, Buckeye Nation out a little bit on wanting Ryan Day fired. Like, those
Absolutely.
are those are things that I think if coaches can be criticized, I think fans can be criticized too, right? But you can tell that it's something much deeper with Herb Street. And the congratulating your son on going to the University of Michigan. Like, listen, that's awesome. That's great, right? You don't need to hear from the coaching staff, in my opinion. You know why? Because the coaching staff has done a pretty good job of taking care of one of your sons right now who's on the team,
Yeah.
who has unfortunately had a heart condition, and the Buckeyes, have really worked to keep him around and keep him involved and make him feel like he's a part of the team. Like, you don't need to bash in your own little way. You don't need to bash that coaching staff like they're not doing right by your family. Like, that's the part that just frustrates me. It's almost like, dude, do you not realize that you have a son that's there, and is a part of Buckeye Nation right now. It's a part of this team right
Yeah.
now. And so, and then the other part, the only thing that really, really frustrates me with Kirk Herbstreit, earlier in his career, I get it, right? You didn't want to be a homer. That was a different time, right? What is it? What is the time now? The time is you root for your school, right? You see Desmond going to bat, right, for
Oh
Michigan
God.
all the time. You see Charles Woodson going to bat for Michigan all the time. You see, Mark Ingram on Big Noon Kickoff going to bat for Alabama all the time. You see Urban going to bat for the Buckeyes all the time. Like, that is a cool part of TV right now. That is a cool part of sports. Like, these guys have their teams and they root for them and they're fans too. Like, dude, stop being, this big wig and just be a fan for a little bit and enjoy that. Enjoy rooting for your school and rooting for your alma mater. Like, I don't know, man. That's the one thing that just frustrates me. I get it. He's on TV. He's got to try to play it down the middle. I get that, but man, Lee Corso doesn't play it down the middle when he's rooting for Indiana, right?
No.
You know what I mean? Like, and so I don't know, man. Herbie is he frustrates me. He frustrates me, but at the end of the day, the Buckeyes got to work to block him out and continue to do what they're doing. But yeah, I definitely didn't like the for lunatic fringe and all that stuff. I wasn't a big fan of that comment.
Yeah, and I felt bad. I'm not a big Fowler fan either because I think Fowler is very condescending toward Ohio State a lot of times. But Herb Street kept pumping out that there's 40 or 50,000 volunteer fans here, and Fowler kept saying, "I don't know if that's right." It's really sad when you have to get corrected basically because you're just trying to skew a perception.
Yeah,
And I laughed, and I started really paying attention to it. And then yesterday morning, like, so you hit on Nick Saban. Nick Saban's allowed to criticize a fan base because Nick Saban is the GOAT.
he is the
Um,
goat.
and what's hilarious is if Ohio State fired Ryan Day, I've already said it. I go, I'd make Saban say no. I
Yeah,
mean, but you know what? You're not gonna bash Saban. Yes, like you said, fans are allowed to be unhappy and question things and that type of thing. But and yes, there are Ohio State fans who take things too far. We've heard stories about things that have gone on in coaches' lives to their families and that type of thing. And that's wrong.
Yeah.
And I will never back that, but yeah, Herb Street just, man, it was really weird. It was just like you said, there's something deeper there.
Yeah.
Um, you know, we both, gave Nico his props for playing a tough game last night. But I would have thought, listening to Herb Street talk about Nico, that I was watching the NFL referees discuss how much they love Patrick Mahomes. Like it
Yeah.
was wild.
Yeah.
I don't know any other way to put it though. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, the boys came to play.
Yep.
They did their job. We're going duck hunting,
Yep.
and the Buckeyes are favored by 2.5 right now.
Yeah, man. It
I don't
was
like it.
yeah. Again, man, it was last night was fun, man. It was great. I love that, they played their best football of the season. My hope is that it continues, which I think it will. I think the guys are hungry. I think, they see the potential now and they're going to want to strive for that potential every single time. I think the coaching staff sees what they have to do to win. And so there is just some really good things that are going to come out of this game. I'm happy for Coach Day. I was happy to see him with his family afterwards with a smile on his face. Sometimes people take that for granted, man. Like it is
Facts.
we're not on this earth for a very long time. We're not, and in the grand scheme of things, it is a blip in time. And so, to see a head coach who's been criticized and people are calling for your job after the game, arm around your wife, arm around your daughter, arm around your son, you're just smiling because you're happy. Like that is something that, yeah, I can get emotional talking about it. That is something that as a coach, like you strive for that moment, right? To just be at peace for a second, because you're not, as soon as that game's over, you get home, you go to sleep and you're right back to work the next day. Right. So just for that moment, man, to find that peace, it is a great feeling, man. And so I was happy for Coach Day. Another thing that, I wanted to bring up with Coach Day, in the last 4 years, there are two programs who have had 11 wins every season, the Buckeyes and Georgia. And so just want to put that in perspective. The difference is the Buckeyes haven't won a natty and they haven't won a conference championship. Right. And so this will put that in a little bit of perspective though. But yeah, man, the guys played great. We got to give out some Buckeye leaves and some silver bullets though too.
Yeah, absolutely. We have to. So Buckeye leaves. Obviously, Jeremiah Smith.
Oh yeah,
Dude, that kid. What is it? 10th receiver in the Buckeye history, over 1,000 yards.
yeah. First true freshman.
And we ain't done. I
Nope.
mean, we very well might see a shootout of some sort. In Cali. So obviously Jeremiah. Y'all know my admiration for Will Howard. And after that game, I got to give Will one. And I'm going to go with a Mecca. To see him and the way he reacted after the game, and that's something we didn't hit on that, real quick. For those seniors to get that bonus game in the shoe and to get a dub,
That was big.
that means a lot.
That was
Yeah,
big.
that's kind of the three I would go with for Buckeye leaves.
Okay, all right. Well, you took Will from me. Obviously, everybody was going to go with JJ. So the first Buckeye leave that I'm going to give out is to freaking Travion Henderson. This dude played, in my opinion, his best game that he's ever played as a Buckeye. And I know, and there are games that he's had better stats, but when I say from the patience, from the vision, from the plays out of the backfield, side note, toot our own horn a little bit. The first wheel route that they ran to Travion Henderson was a play that Jake and I talked about exactly to a T.
Yep.
He's got to attack the curl flats, man. But I think Travion, man, it was awesome. It was awesome to see. He played so patient. just ran hard and got vertical, didn't make any extra cuts. Like, yeah, it was just like the Trey that we needed to see at the right time. And so to get 134 yards of total offense and that touchdown, like just 2 touchdowns, just played a great game. Going to give one to Quinshawn too for what he did in the red zone. He only averaged like 3.9 yards a carry. It wasn't a lot, but again, I loved seeing the violence that he ran with and that he just, again, put his foot in the ground and got vertical. You got to get what you can get. The Buckeyes ended up with 156 yards rushing. I think that's just kind of where we need to be in all these games. And so I was happy to see that. And then the last one that I'm going to give offensively is to my guy, Luke. I couldn't leave him out, man.
I wasn't taking that one from you.
Yeah. Luke Montgomery, man, I just was very proud of him. To see him get that pancake, the energy that he brought, just put everybody on notice, man. Like he's here. He ain't going anywhere, hopefully, and that he's locked in, man. And so I was just happy to see him play the way that he did. And man, it's going to be fun for the future. And I think people are underestimating how good this offensive line could be next year. You put, Hinsman, Luke, Saravel, Josh Padilla. Like it's a good group on the interior, man. So it could be good next year.
Yeah, and speaking of that, I guess you're going to make me pivot because we did not even talk about our transfer portal boom. Philip Daniels from Minnesota, cousin of Paris Johnson Jr. Will most likely come in and take down one of those tackle spots. I think he's a right tackle. We'll obviously dive into that more at some point because, honestly, we're going to have to do a portal recap type thing because right now, for the Buckeyes, the portal's not the focus. Gabe Powers is going to Kansas State. That did come out.
Really? Okay. I did not know that.
Yeah. Silver Bullets. There could be a lot of them. Captain Jack obviously is the easy choice. So I'm going to go with Cody Simon.
Mm-hmm.
Led us some tackles last night, but that hit on Nico set the tone for that game.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that showed, hey, these boys can hit. And then I'm going to give one to IGB and Denzel Burke. You didn't hear Denzel Burke's name all night.
Not all night, man.
That's a good thing when you're talking about a corner.
Yeah.
I am amped. I hope this doesn't bite me in the butt, but I am amped for Denzel Burke to get a retribution opportunity against Evan Stewart and the Ducks.
Oh, he's going to be locked in.
And I guess just an overall, I'm just going to give the whole damn helmet to the fans last night.
Here we go.
The SEC chants, epic.
Yeah.
The kudos to the DJ for the Rocky Top Hey Hey Goodbye remix.
Yeah.
Shout out to my boy Bobby Carpenter for leading getting the crowd amped up, wearing his varsity jacket while wearing his media credentials. And shout out to, I feel like Ohio State figured out it's okay to stick basic. The Hive was back. Hell's Bells was back.
Yeah.
It just hit, man. It just hit.
Yeah. It was a great atmosphere, man. I that was going to be something I talked about briefly, just to give a Buckeye Leave Silver Bullet some kudos to, the whole Scarlet Out, the lights, the drone show, things like that, man. I thought it was electric, and I think that's something the Buckeyes should do more of. Obviously, you need more night games to be able to do those things, and so that whole atmosphere seemed to be pretty cool. First silver bullet I'm going to give out, I got to go to Cody Simon. All over the place, just played out of his mind. Obviously broke Nico's helmet, just did some really good things, knocked down some passes. He's unsung hero of this team, man. He's just a baller. He's just playing really well, man. And so shout out to him. Definitely want to give one. I'm going to give a silver bullet to the whole defensive line. I think the guys who rotated in, they did their jobs. They played well. Obviously, was going to be led by the big three with Tyleek and Jack and JT. But I think the whole defensive line, played great as a unit, and they just did their job. And then this last one, this is going to be a little bit out of left field. He didn't really play much until the very end. But freaking Jalen McClain, that
Yes.
dude is a missile. Oh my gosh. Like I couldn't stop talking about how much fun he's going to be to watch next year. Like he is a freaking missile. Like I was just like, man, this dude is just all over the place making plays, man. So shout out to him, man. Making the most of your opportunity. Obviously, he's a great special teamer. For those who don't know, he's number 18 on defense. He's a young guy. I think he's a redshirt freshman. He's got a bright future, and he's made the most of his opportunities when he gets in.
Yeah, absolutely. Lathan Ransom also played really good.
That speed option play was great.
Well, so yeah, to hit on that play real quick, JTT and Lathan played that to a T.
Yeah.
JT sat that edge, and made Nico pitch it. He didn't have a choice at that point.
Yeah.
It's either pitch it or get pitched. I mean, man, it was fun. So yeah, shout out to all the guys, I mean, a massive win,
Yep.
I don't think there's any other way to put it. You and Jake really hit on a lot of things that we saw last night, straight up the middle, type home run hit plays. Always helps when you got Luke Montgomery out there, Orlando pacing people.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, man, I think I text, I don't remember. It was either, I don't think it was you. It was either our boy BG or John Ratliff. And I said, this is the type of the win that hits like what I'm assuming like crack feels like. Cause I wish we were playing Oregon today.
Yeah.
So that kind of, we're not done with before the battles. I guess that's there we go. Thing, we'll knock out something, midweek for you guys this week. If you got something you want us to cover, throw it out there. Like we talked about, maybe some 26 on portal stuff, because then we're gonna have, before the battle is gonna be weird time because the game is next Wednesday. So
yeah.
But we'll figure all that out. But obviously, we're here for it. I hope we've got 3 more before the battles.
Yep.
And then a hellacious recap. But shout out to the Barn Cornerstone, for their support. You guys for listening. Give us a shout out to send us home.
Oh man, I want to shout out the Buckeye Nation, man, that was there at the game. You can't I can't stress enough the environment and how much home field advantage plays into these games. As you saw in the playoff, having that home crowd behind you in a playoff game is such a big deal. So shout out to Buckeye Nation. I hope now that we are able to put the Michigan loss behind us and really get behind this team because they showed their true potential. Like Coach Saban said, like they need us right now, man. We're going to have to travel out to Pasadena and really show up for the guys. And so shout out to Buckeye Nation stepping up. Now, we got to continue to support these guys because I think they're locked in. And I think they have a real chance to go win the whole damn thing. And so hopefully that's what happens. But shout out to Buckeye Nation, man. Good job.
Yeah, I mean, better national championship odds than Oregon now. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the atmospheres, all 4 of them. Shout out to the Notre Dame fans on Friday night.
Yeah.
The Penn State fans, you knew they were going to bring it, and Texas was pretty lit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so with that, we'll see you guys midweek for something. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, all of that good stuff. And thanks, you guys. We're approaching a year, man. That's what's wild. So yeah, we'll see you guys later this week.